Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the NBA Front Office Show, Team USA edition today. We're going to talk about the Team USA roster, what's going on there, who's on, who should still be added, and what this means for these players' NBA teams and their futures in the league. A lot to break down. Joining me, as always, is Keith Smith. Before we dive into it, though, quick reminder, subscribe right here to the NBA Front Office channel. We certainly appreciate all the support that we've had so far, so make sure you do subscribe and turn on notifications as well. Keith, how are you doing? This is a star-studded Team USA roster here. Give us a little bit of basketball, I guess, during the offseason to look forward to.
Yeah, absolutely. I love the Olympics, right? Because it's the one time we can kind of all come together and root for these
Yeah,
guys together, Team USA. It's always fun, whether it be, basketball or any sport, Team USA soccer, the women's team, especially because they actually win. We can dream for the
that's
men,
right.
right?
We can
Someday,
dream.
someday
I'm
it's going
holding
to
out
happen.
hope.
We'll break through. But it's we have it's always fun to root on your country in this. And yeah, I mean, we've got nonstop basketball because the NBA finals, which we'll talk about a little bit with this construction of Team USA, its last day is July 22nd if it goes 7 games. We already know the finals, we know what days they'll be played on. Then the Olympic basketball, men's basketball starts on July 25th. So it's really 2 days to get to Japan. And three of these guys, they right now are still alive and probably the favorites to get to the NBA Finals. So just gonna run them down in
Yeah.
alphabetical order by last name: Bam Adebayo, Bradley Beal, Devin Booker, still alive, Kevin Durant, Draymond Green, James Harden, Damian Lillard, Kevin Love. That one's a little bit of a surprise, I
Yes.
think, to a lot of people. Chris Middleton, still alive. Chris Paul, still alive, and Jason Tatum. So that's 11 players. I am not fully certain that I believe Booker, Middleton, and Paul, if they get to the finals and it goes deep, will actually go. I have a hard time believing they play a game 7. One of the guys is celebrating, another guy is not, and then they're going to immediately fly to Japan. They'd miss the entire camp. They'd miss the entire exhibitions. It's only a 12-man roster, so you'd be talking a quarter of your roster wouldn't be available to you for till you're basically getting started in the tournament. And this isn't the old days where it's Team USA rolls the ball out, they stretch a little, and then they win by
Right.
40. Right? We unfortunately don't show up and do that anymore. Unfortunately for us, we're both Americans, so we can say that, right? But but the team is very interesting. I think there's a pretty good mix. Probably maybe use another wing, maybe another
Mhm.
big. We're going to talk about that here in a minute. But yeah, I like the mixture. We'll just see if Booker, Middleton, and Paul, are available to play or not ultimately. But yeah, I think the mix is not bad.
It's always fascinating for me to see the NBA stars and how they fare when the ball changes. First of all, I mean, that's a big thing, right? It's a different ball, and then the rule changes as well, and how they manage that. And again, we expect Team USA to show up and dominate, but it's been getting closer and closer, and in part because of that, because there is this adjustment for these NBA stars. But when you're talking about, well, Devin Booker, maybe he doesn't go if they get to the finals. Chris Paul, Chris Middleton, maybe those guys don't go. How I'm seeing a mixed reaction from fans on social media. If a player from their team is going, I'm seeing some fans celebrating, and then others
Mm-hmm.
that are not happy about this or are celebrating when their star comes out and says, I'm not going. And I know from a Lakers perspective, the majority of Lakers fans breathed a sigh of relief when LeBron said, I'm not going. And Anthony Davis said, I'm not going because they've been dealing with injuries. In an injury plagued NBA season like we've just had, and where the playoffs, I think, have been greatly impacted by injuries, how should fans feel about this if their guy is going?
Yeah, it's really tough, right? Because what you're looking at, like, let's use Jason
Huh?
Tatum as an example here. He played last year or 2 years ago now in the FIBA World Cup in 2019. So played that very short break right into training camp, played that season. Now we did have the break, but that was not a normal kind of break when the season went on pause due to the pandemic and all that. But then played in the bubble. The Celtics went to the conference finals in the bubble, then right back at it, not quite as quick as the Heat and the Lakers, but only by what, a week and a half, 2 weeks. Then they were right back at it for this whole season. And now, Celtics are out early in the first round, but it's going to be about a month break or so for him. And now then he's going to be back at it with Team USA. So now what you're really kind of looking at in this case is then this will go until, early
Mhm.
August, I guess is the best way to put that. And then that's going to be about a month off, and then right into training camp and into the regular NBA calendar of October to April regular season. So that is very, very little
Right.
break for a guy like Jason Tatum. In this example, look at Booker, Middleton, and Paul. They may play all the way, until just before and then go with no break in between. Kevin Durant, his season just ended. James Harden, season ended with him limping around out there. So I get it when people are like, hey, it's a pretty cool honor to be, asked to go and all these things and to represent your country and all that. But I fully understand with these guys why some of them are saying it's just not the time for me. And for like LeBron's already done it,
Yeah.
right? He
Right.
he's been Team USA several times. So for him, I get it. But for a guy like Tatum, a young guy, you don't know how many times you're gonna be asked to go. Guys like Chris Paul, Kevin Love, getting later in their careers, how many more times you'll be asked to go. So I get why guys are doing it, but I also very much understand the worry that some fans have, and quite frankly, a lot of NBA coaches, general managers, front office people have of, is it the right thing for these guys to go or not? No one wants to be the one to come out and say don't
Yeah.
go,
Right.
because it's just that's such a rough
It's
look. But yeah,
unpatriotic, right? You
it
get
is.
labeled as
Yeah,
unpatriotic
exactly.
if you say, "Oh, don't
Yeah.
go."
Yep.
But yeah, if a player,
Yep.
I mean, from the front office perspective, if you're getting paid untold millions of dollars to play for this team, and then you go, I mean, we all remember what happened to Paul George, and you get hurt playing for Team USA, and it's the NBA club that really suffers because then they don't have that player for sometimes a full season. So
Yep.
there's a lot of risk here too. So, not to be overly
Yeah,
negative, but
I'm with you, and I can say without a doubt, NBA team personnel would prefer that all of their guys are invited and get the prestige of being
mhm,
invited, and then they would prefer that none of them play.
yeah,
They don't like when they play in these summer league things that are not NBA summer league. They want them to only play basketball in controlled environments by the teams. That's just I mean, and you get it from the standpoint of they invested, in some cases here, hundreds of millions of
yes,
dollars in these players. So you can understand it. But yes, I do really ultimately in the end, I get why guys go. And one thing I always do say too is these guys are going to play somewhere. And in a lot of ways, better that they go and play in the Olympics than they're playing, pickup games in an open gym
right.
somewhere in Las Vegas, LA, Miami, Orlando, where a lot of the guys make their off-season homes. So yeah, I get it from that
Sure.
standpoint.
I mean, we all remember DeMarcus Cousins tears his ACL in a pickup game
Mm-hmm.
before even playing a single
Clay
game
Thompson.
for the Lakers. Like that kind of stuff happens
Yep.
too. So there is no just
Yep.
zero risk for these guys. But on the positive
Yep.
side, this can be a great experience for them, right? Being there, representing your country, being around these other top players in the league, going out and accomplishing something together, it can be a great experience there on the world stage. So there's some real positives to take away. And also, we got to mention it, Keith. It's happened numerous times in the past where Team USA results in kind of the seeds being planted for super teams of the future to be formed. And so that's always something I like to keep in the back of my mind when I look at these roster combinations. Like, just kind of remember the bonds that are going to be formed here between these guys and this group, and the kinds of discussions that might be being taking place there, because it could become something that we see play out in the NBA in a year or 2 years, or whenever some of these guys hit free agency.
Yeah, LeBron James, Chris Bosh, Dwayne Wade
Yeah.
openly said it was playing together on the Olympic team that got them with the idea of, hey, we could do this in the NBA and all play together. And right now, this is my impression of Celtics fans seeing Bradley Beal and Jason Tatum's names together on this list. They're doing the Mr. Burns
Yeah, right.
excellent. So they're there, right? They are already dreaming that world into been thinking about it forever. The slight differences, a couple of these guys are a little bit
Yes.
older. So we'll see with that. But yeah, but guys like Beal, Adebayo, Tatum, you could see, we still got one more spot to be filled here. Are those guys going to look at it and say, hey, we could do this? I mean, Tatum and Beal, this is just going to further solidify a lifelong friendship for those two guys. Both from St. Louis. They've known each other their whole lives.
Mhm.
So yeah, but it is, something's going to come out of this. And in what, 5, 6 years, we'll get the story about, well, it was when we were in Japan, and
Right.
remember it was that year with the pandemic, and we didn't have all our families there, and so it was really just us hanging out. And we're like, we could do this in the NBA. Like that story is going to come out at some point.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So you mentioned that there is a roster spot left.
Yeah.
Who let's talk about it. Who should get that spot? The final roster spot, and you look at this team, what are your thoughts on what this team needs? I mean, it's pretty stacked, but I think there's a couple of spots where maybe they could use a little bit more help.
Yeah, and you know what's funny? The first guy I mentioned to you when we were off air, we'll do a little peek behind
Yeah.
the curtain inside baseball here for a minute, was Cat. And I completely forgot he plays for the Dominican Republic
Oh,
on the
right.
national
I,
team level. I
I didn't
forgot
think of
all
that
about
either.
that.
That
Yeah, I didn't even think about that. So yeah, so it starts to look like, do you want another big? It's funny, the guy everybody keeps mentioning to me on Twitter is, everybody's like, well, and I assume Mason Plumlee will be there just because
right.
Mason Plumlee will be there, which is kind of funny. But I think there's a chance it could be Julius Randle,
Oh, that's a
could
good
be
one.
Tobias Harris. Those are two guys that are eligible, that both had nice seasons. If they wanted to go with another guard, especially if the Chris Paul availability is in
Mhm.
question, what if you went with a young guy like John Morant? What if you went with Trey Young? You could invite him there, depending on what it looks like for him coming out of his season. Those two guys would be a lot of fun on that team. If you wanted to go with another scoring wing, Michael Porter Jr.
Yeah.
is a guy that could be there. I almost wonder too, are they holding it for one of these college guys? We've seen that in the past where Anthony Davis went and played with Team USA that one
Right.
summer when he was coming into the league. So could it be a Cade Cunningham? Could they say, hey, we want to bring him along and bring him up that way? That's always been their kind of loose connection to amateurism of the Olympics. Of hey, this guy's not a pro
The
yet,
Christian
which
Leitner.
is always kind of silly.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. If they wanted another shooter, Joe Harris could go there if they wanted that. So yeah, there's a whole lot of guys out there that you're eligible, but we've also seen a lot of guys already say no, right? We know LeBron James, Anthony Davis don't want to go. Can't, and no criticism on any of
No.
these guys. Stephen Curry opted out as well. Not Team USA related, but Ben Simmons apparently is not going to play for Australia, which you got to start to wonder, is he ever going to play
Right.
for Australia now? This is several competitions he has not played in for them. So yeah, a guy like Jaylen Brown, who played last time around, I would think he might have been in the mix, but he's
Injured.
hurt.
Right.
He's going to be rehabbing still. So yeah, I'm very curious to see the direction that they go with that last spot or spots. If any out of Booker, Middleton, and Paul are like, what, after this run, we're just this was too much on us. We should probably sit it out.
I think it's interesting too when you look at this roster that they've got. You see, okay, well, Bam Adebayo right now is the only like real center on the roster, but in
Yeah.
FIBA play, like in international play, you don't necessarily need that guy out there. It's more about the floor spacing. We talked about this. Kevin Durant could play the center position for you there. So I
Yeah.
agree. I'm looking more at the guard.
Kevin Love,
Kevin Love. But
clearly a
how did
five on
Kevin
the
Love get? Is it just
international.
the shooting that gets Kevin Love onto this roster? Like he is the one that just sticks out like a sore thumb when we're reading through these names
Yeah.
here.
I think to some extent it's that he'll go. I mean, I
we
think you
we
can get a
needed
firm
someone who would
commitment.
say yes.
Yeah, I mean I do really think that that's part of
Uh-huh.
it, and I think there's a sense that Kevin Love on the Cleveland Cavaliers he's all right, but Kevin Love on the Team USA, where he's surrounded by a bunch of dudes and they're like just rebound and shoot,
Yeah.
he probably will look really great, right? Is that's my guess. So yeah, I think we'll see where that plays out with him being there. A couple people said, does Kevin Love get to go, or is it just like Kevin Love said he'll go, or if they actually picked him? And it's a little like it's kind of funny, but yeah, I think he's gonna go. So we'll see.
Well, it's going to be interesting to see where they go with that final roster spot. Obviously, plenty of different options for them to turn to, but for the most part, this is the group. Again, unless a few players drop out if they end up playing deep in the playoffs here or something like that. But this should be the group that we are watching. I mean, it's a very, very talented bunch, and I can't wait to see what it looks like out there on the floor. But of course, for the teams, for their NBA clubs, fingers crossed that everybody stays healthy, everybody is able to rest enough, because good Lord, we saw the impact of not enough rest, too quick of a turnaround, all that kind of stuff really wreak havoc on the NBA season and then again on the NBA playoffs this year. So fingers crossed that hopefully these guys are also able to get through it injury free and are able to get enough rest to be at 100% for next year's NBA season.
Yeah, no doubt. And just so everybody knows, we'll be coming back with you sometime tomorrow to break down the lottery.
That's right.
We've got the NBA draft lottery. Tonight, we're recording this on Tuesday afternoon, so we're only a few hours away. So that'll be a lot of fun. A lot of intrigue in this lottery because teams that could lose picks, teams that could keep picks, teams that could slide up and have multiple picks. So a lot of fun stuff. So we'll be back to break all that down here tomorrow, and what the outcomes of that lottery were and what that does for different teams as they plan their off
For
season.
sure. Can't wait for it. And again, in order to make sure you know right when that video drops, subscribe and then turn on those notifications as well. That way you get a little notification on your phone as soon as that video comes out and you can check it out. Thanks, everybody. Till next time. See ya and stay safe.